All right, everybody, welcome back. Good afternoon. We're going to do some draft evaluations here with these tight ends. We're on to day 3 already. This is going to be day 3, part 2. And we've only really got 3 parts. I was originally going to do 2 extra videos to talk about some of the UDFAs, but I don't feel the need to spend like 20 minutes talking about tight ends that probably don't get drafted. I'll just keep it to the guys who are projected to get drafted for the most part. And there are some interesting ones. There are some ones that have clear positive attributes. Let's start with Jake Briningstool of Clemson, 22 years old. This guy's been around a while. I've had my eye on him for a little while here, not because he's great or anything like that, but because he was a tight end of note last year, and he had another notable season this year. So I feel like I've been keeping an eye on him for a while. He's very tall, 6'6". He's got like that Stanford tight end size, but in every other way, he's very small. He's light, so he's going to be very lean, which is going to be a problem in the NFL, especially if you're trying to play in line. He's got very short arms for a tight end, 31.5 inches, and his hands are some of the smallest we've ever seen for a tight end. He is first percentile. The testing was mixed. The 40 time was about average. The broad was about average. The 10-yard split was okay, pretty good, and the vert was bad. However, again, I want to remind everybody this is compared to all testing numbers for tight ends across the last 25 years. So if you were to take the last 10 years, this would look pretty bad because the standard for what a tight end should be has gone up. Big boards, only a few had him, had like a 5th rounder, 6th rounder, 7th rounder type grade. The aggregate has him in the 5th. He's had 2 pretty good seasons, about 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 100 catches, 150 targets. Just been a pretty reliable target in that Clemson passing attack. He is a hard worker. He is somebody who works really hard to overcome his obvious physical deficiencies. I think he can be a good blocker in the run game. I think he can be somebody who can be a good move blocker as well. He's good at the catch point. He uses his height fairly well to high point the ball. Good hands. He is good at reading a zone defense and finding the hole in the zone defense and sitting down in it, which is a very valuable skill for these guys. And he's somebody who's not afraid to work through contact to try to make catches. If you get physical with him at the catch point, he is able to win that battle. So those would be the positives with Briningstool, but there are negatives. And I kind of already went over the main one. He's very lean. 241 is, I mean, at 6'6", it's almost like you should be playing basketball. Like, you're not far off from being a basketball player at that point. And having such short arms and small hands is also a little bit hard to that's a little bit hard to feel great about. I know it's not the end of the world, but it's going to make it harder for him to be a good blocker. It's going to reduce his abilities to rescue off-target passes. He's not athletic enough to beat man coverage. Man coverage just kind of eats him up. He doesn't have the speed or short area quickness to get open. Mostly, he's just a guy who picks up underneath throws. He's a guy you target underneath. And because he is so lean, he gets out-leveraged a lot when he tries to block. So even though there is some promise with him as a blocker, the leverage game's not his friend. So I don't see much with Briningstool except a chain mover in the NFL, but that's enough to do something. So I'm going to say 6th rounder. I think he's a 6th rounder, little overvalued here because the production looks pretty good. I'd take him in the 6th round, though, just for, like, moving the chains and maybe bringing in passes in the red zone. Okay, next up we have Jaylen Conyers, Texas Tech. This is a very interesting one. This is like Diet Tyler Warren almost, right? Tyler Warren is a do-everything player, so is Jalin Conyers. Conyers isn't as good, but he brings some of the same exciting things to the table here. 24 years old when the season starts from Texas Tech. He's very squat. Unlike Briningstool, who was tall but light, Conyers is actually relatively short for a tight end, 6'3.5", but he's got a lot of mass to him, 260. So he's the opposite. Arm length, little above average, 33 and a quarter, decent sized hands. Testing overall was good. He is a little bit on the slower side. He's not super quick. 1.62 10-yard split isn't crazy exciting, but he is explosive. He does have some good change of direction skills, as he showed at the 3-cone and the 20-yard shuttle. Big boards, 6th round, starts to push into the 7th a little bit maybe. CBS has him barely in the top 400. They don't like him very much. But the aggregate actually has him a little bit higher than that. They have him in the 5th. So that seems to be where he's overall valued right now. Last 2 years, he's been pretty productive. Not anything insane. But the interesting thing with him is that he's been utilized not just as a tight end that catch passes. He's caught 30 passes in each of the last 2 seasons. He's also been a little bit of a running back. He's got 30 carries over the last 2 seasons. And he's also got a little bit of action as a pass thrower. So he's one of those. Very fun. It's not a huge part of his game, but this might be just what the Seahawks need at the moment. So he's a utility player. A utility player, you can do almost anything offensively. Very dangerous with the ball in his hands. Somebody that when you get him the ball, yak stuff is going to come to him naturally. He's got good ball skills to find throws in the air and catch them. He's good at adjusting. He's good at finding where he needs to go in order to bring the ball in. He's very athletic as well. We can see that in his testing numbers. Again, the speed is not there, but there are other attributes here that might be more valuable, especially the way he plays football. So he's a good athlete. And even though he isn't that fast in terms of like on a track, his speed does translate pretty well to the field. And he's a pretty decent blocker as well already. You know you're going to have to get better. Pretty much everybody does when they go from college to the NFL. But he's already a pretty decent blocker. Now, I think he has the potential to be a good route runner, but right now he doesn't run very good routes. He doesn't break them off cleanly. He doesn't deceive defenders very well. So that's something that's going to have to come. He doesn't showcase the ability to get open fast, like that quickness we talk about. Like he's not that quick. So getting open in a short area against man coverage is not really a strength of his. And his blocking technique just needs to get a little more consistent. And overall, I think he's just going to have to really work to get better at stuff. He's going to have to improve his blocking and his route running to make it in the NFL as anything other than a gimmick player. So I like a lot about him. What's his mindset? If his mindset is he wants to be great, I think he could be great. I think his versatility makes him very valuable. He's a very fun sleeper. I know a 4th round pick seems like a little much. I would not mind spending a 4th round pick on this guy. If you think he's got the drive, I think he could be your tight end, your fullback, maybe do a little bit of stuff out of the slot, maybe do some trick play stuff. You've got a variety of options with Jalin Conyers, so I would go there. All right, last guy for this video is Benjamin Yurosek, another guy I've been watching for a couple years now. He was on Stanford last year, but they kicked him out when they realized he was only 6'4" and 242. You got to be a lot bigger to make it in Stanford as a tight end. He went to Georgia last year, wasn't a big part of their offense. Honestly, Yurosek kind of has this, he's kind of had a little bit of bad fortune over the last couple of years where he's had 2 pretty forgettable seasons statistically, but in 2022 and 2021, he actually put up better numbers. But those years are so far in the past now, it's hard to remember them. Right now, people are thinking about him as what he's done the last 2 years, and the last 2 years have been pretty lackluster. He does have open field speed. If you give him like a lot of room to build up speed, he can get going. I think he's got good speed, and I think he's a legitimate vertical threat. You can send him up the seams, you can send him down the field, and he's a good vertical threat. He's got good upside as a run blocker. I think that he will probably be a good run blocker in the NFL, and that's both in space as a move blocker and in the trenches as like a extension of the offensive line. He's good at catching in traffic. And I think he'll be able to line up, even though he's a little bit small, I think he'll be able to handle like Y tight end and F tight end stuff. I think he'll be able to do inline and slot. I think he'll be able to do it. He might need to add a little bit of weight, but he should be able to do that, right? He's got enough of a frame to add weight to if he needs to. Now, while I think that his straight line build-up speed is good, Yurosek, His quickness is not great. He gets pushed around by physical defenders a little bit. I think if you're physical with him, you can take him out of the game. He's overall not really that great of an athlete. The main thing he has is straight line, open field speed, and that's about it. While I think he's a decent blocker, he needs more strength because a power rusher will just bulldoze him. So he needs to add muscle, and he probably needs to anyway, if we're being honest. We're talking about a guy who probably needs to get up to like 250. 8 pounds of muscle would go a long way in making him a better blocker. His sustain can be a little bit weak after engagement as a blocker, and that should be weak with an A. And the last 2 years, he hasn't really produced. Again, his best years of tight end production were 2022, 2021, and I don't think you can go back that far when you have 2 seasons where he's been playing and he just hasn't been putting up the numbers. You have to wonder why. That's an important part of the picture here. So, kind of a frustrating prospect for me. He's got a long way to go. I feel like he doesn't have quickness. He doesn't have strength. He doesn't really have overall athleticism. Like, there's so much he's missing. And I'm just trying to figure out what he's going to be able to do with the next level. I feel like maybe his best bet is to try to become a blocker. I think the deep field stuff could be valuable, so I'll say 7th round pick. That's about as far as I can go. I feel like he needs to improve so many areas of his game to make it. So I'm going to say 7th round pick. I think I can use my other picks a little bit better than Yurosek at this point. All right. One more tight end video later today, and then we're going to move on to another position tomorrow. So let me know what you guys think about this crew. I'll see you guys later on today. One more video. Maybe another if something happens. Go Hawks. Let me know what you think of these 3.